come to a point in one's life that sometimes you have to be very open about certain issues that may be personal or private. In my case, that's what I also have the same sort of personal, issues that probably I would say something to do with just me having that experience. And in all humility, I greet you all, but I like to just touch on these things a bit. I may have opened up in my video regarding my personal account, and it is basically on that topic, even though I am unveiling certain issues. It's all within the same context of what has provoked this moment of discussions, and it is not because of the provoking side. Maybe it would have eventually be the same thing. I would have touched on these issues anyway, whether because I was that type, whether I've been provoked or not, or whether I've been hurt or not, or whether I've gone through experiences or I've not gone through any experience. I probably would have still touched on these issues. They were very dear to my heart because I'm the nature that wants to find out truth and answers to life. If I'm experiencing spiritual things that may affect my health, it makes it even worse. I wouldn't care even if my mother or father have got some genetic thing that they sort of pass on to me, whichever way it is. If it is if a disease or something terrible, I'm not supposed to like it. Any effort that I can do, financially or physically, within my strength, that I can be able to eradicate or cleanse or take away such disease or spirit that has been passed on to me, I will do so in my power to do so. It is my responsibility to do so. So I'm not too keen about what someone passes on to me, but the fact that whatever is being passed on to me must be right, must be good, must be comfortable, must be acceptable. I have to be able to accept it, analyze it, look at it, and be interested in whatever it is. And so I am the type that in spiritual matters, I dig into it, I look into it, I sort of try to evaluate, and in my valuation, I come up with the best that I think, not just for me, but for anybody who is closer to me, or anybody around my life, or anybody that I intend to be close to. It's just my nature, because you cannot just take things just as they come. If you have an apple or you pluck an apple, you don't just take it and put it in your mouth. Most people who just do that from the tree straight to the mouth, they normally end up, increasing the infections that probably might come as a result of that. But if you wash it before you eat it, at least you have reduced the content of bacteria or whatever it is that may have maybe passed on to you. In that sense, I'm just using that as an analogy. In that sense, whatever that comes to you, whether it's a message, a gospel, or whatever it is, it's right and proper that when you hear, you get the message, you diagnose it, you look into it, you make sure that it is actually good for your health. It's good for your mental ability. It is good for your everyday social life. It is good in the natural sense that it is not going to give you a wrong picture and deplete you in a different way. That is all that matters. So when knowing that this is my true nature, I stick to that in every way. But there's always others outside of you, a friend, a neighbor, who doesn't have to necessarily agree with you on everything, because we are all coming from somewhere we all have an interest, and we all have our beliefs and all we feel is right or wrong. Sometimes we expect that we should coordinate, but it doesn't necessarily come out to be the case. In that respect, I know that I accept the fact of life where I probably will be facing certain resentment or disagreement, and that was it. But not as far as having spiritual, torments in all kinds of forms, or having some spiritual, you know, possessions, possessiveness, whilst I've not even considered, such things. So yes, I was keen. Now I wouldn't care if it is a parental discernment, whichever way it is. I don't just go for anything. If my mother lies to certain ways of doing things, that's not necessarily means that I should follow through. If I feel that it is not right, I would say so. And she's very much aware of my wishes. So if my father is alive, will be aware of my wishes. That is who a man becomes when he's up on his feet. I, being part of a Christian fellowship or any other fellowship with good intentions, expect them to respect my views, and they, as I have respected their views. But the thing is, if you come to that religious side, it is not anybody's views. We are all entitled to express ourselves, because the one who we see as being the altar, who should claim the views to be his, has not visibly done so. We are all living these things in a lie, or in sort of what do you call it, in an assumption state, just presuming that this is the case. But we are not necessarily accurately right, or accurately in our approach. We cannot say that it is exactly, or we have some confidence and assurance that what we say or what we do is right. Others are trying to demonstrate that, but they can do very well. So in my time of joining the Christian fellowship and being put through a sort of a spiritual experience, and realizing that it was a matter of death, and making since that time my health is getting very, very bad, and experiencing certain things that haven't got real answers, even though you may have to go to a doctor and have yourself resolved in sort of the practical way of doing things, where they will look into the system and find out how or what causes that, and that's a normal thing I have to go through, and I go through it willingly with no problem, except if there is issues with the health or NHS. That's a different thing altogether. But personally, I volunteer myself, make myself available for such treatment. But it does not clear the fact that I had an experience spiritually, and it was from that moment that things have become even worse. Now, if you have faith and you're in my shoes, what would you think? You will definitely begin to consider anything that you have to consider, knowing that there are spiritual acts of people which sometimes causes very terrible, harmful things onto people. People lose their life, people get sick, people get mentally, tormented, and mental sickness. So all sort of things could happen to you. It depends on how people may pursue you. And I say to myself, and I'll say it 100 times to anybody or everybody, you may have seen yourself as a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Judaist, as a Judaism, whichever way you may see yourself. Don't underestimate that spiritual group that you are in. In fact, if you are putting your mind to it and examining it carefully, you will come to that point, you come to the point in seeing that spiritual things are not matters of a joke. They are matters that, can do anything and get away with anything, that you cannot even, you can't even sort of be able to get to the roots of it, or it can do things and get away with unresolved, and you will live the rest of your life in that situation. Even in the Bible, it is revealed somehow that if you end up being possessed with a spirit or a wrong spirit, instead of you looking for the Holy Spirit, you get possessed with